So yeah, during the pandemic, at least some of the people had to end up in hospitals either for themselves or for their family members, and I'm pretty sure they would have realized the importance of having financial immunity as well, because hospital bills even went up to 15-20 lakhs, maybe in some cases even more depending on the condition. So how does one build financial immunity is something we will focus on today. And of course, insurance is one of the important components, but there are many other components. So you are all associated with Circle Health because of insurance, but we will talk about the other components as well. So the 6 elements of personal finance that we are going to talk about today. One is income, of course. So most of the people who are attending might be either working or doing some business or maybe in profession, and uh, that is something everyone is spending most of their time on, the daily routine time, right? So that is something anyways you are focused on. uh, of course, income can be enhanced as well by doing certain things which we will talk about. Next is expenses. That is inevitable. At least the essential expenses are inevitable. Then there are, of course, discretionary expenses, other recurring expenses, and all. Savings is something which is generally what is left over. Ideally, it should be, expenses should be planned so that savings is something which is equivalent to the amount desired. Again, we will talk more about that. Insurance, then investment and taxation. Now, these three areas typically, so income, expenses, and saving automatically get taken care of, because income is what you are focused on, expenses is something that is inevitable, savings is something which is left over. But the other three areas are typically the areas where sometimes there is neglect. So, and especially when enough time is not spent on understanding those areas, or expert advice is not sought on those areas, because again, if you're gainfully employed and focused on your vocation or profession, then you may not have adequate time to understand the nitty-gritties and nuances of either taxation or investment or insurance. So most people end up being underinsured, especially on the life insurance front, because healthcare, again, thanks to your employers and Circle Health, probably you are well covered there. But when it comes to life insurance, what we have noticed, uh, that people often have just 5 to 10% of what they need. Second, when it comes to taxation, again, the basic, nitty-gritties maybe everyone knows, but then there are clauses. Like even in my case, till the time I, had my child going to school, and one fine day I was just looking at some details and discussing with a friend who is a CA, practicing CA. Then I realized that tuition fees expenses are also something that can be claimed under 80C, and but often people wouldn't know that, right? Many people don't know that tuition fees can be claimed under 80C. So likewise, there would be other things on the taxation front, where how you can benefit on the capital gains front if you had some capital gains either because of selling a property or shares, how you can effectively plan for the taxation element as far as those are concerned. Then comes investment. Again, many people think that okay, investment can be done part-time as a part-time activity. No, it is not possible. It's a full-time activity. It requires a lot of time, effort, and patience. And if you're busy in your career, does spending 1 or 2 hours during a week really help in terms of planning your investments well? Maybe most cases not. Even if you have made good returns, maybe it is more of luck, than any kind of skill or monitoring. So that is again something where one needs to seek out the right advice, and plan better for it. Now we'll go further into each of these elements. We'll go slightly deeper into each of these elements. I'll hand over to Nikhil to just quickly walk through the different elements in a bit more detail.
So, like Vikas was saying, that these are the 6 elements of personal finance. Let's look at each one of them in a little bit more detail. So, when we talk about income, right, the income we are referring to here is income post your taxation. And usually, a lot of us are employed in the knowledge knowledge industry, right? So, usually here the skills will compound over time, and how you can increase your income. One way is to upskill it, keep getting upskilled, and also along with time, your income tends to increase, and a lot of performance-driven increase also happens throughout your career. So income is something which is usually what you earn from by against your time or by lending your time to an employer. Savings is usually a part of income that we keep aside for future consumption, right? It could be emergency fund, which could be ideally it's better to have around 12 months of expenses as an emergency fund, but even if you don't have, you can start with a small one, at least 3 to 6 months of expenses, so that in an off case scenario, you are well covered. Then when we talk about short-term and long-term expenses, better to bucket them. Some of the expenses are in the form of needs, which are unavoidable. Some of them are wants, which we can plan for better and probably think of how to utilize them. Now, when we talk about expenses, it is like we have to budget for our spends. Plus, it is a trade-off between enjoying life today versus tomorrow. So usually, if you save something today, you'll probably earn a higher amount of interest on it and probably be able to utilize it for a better purpose in the future. But that is obviously at the cost of present consumption. So you have to many times you have to better to bucket it across durations and make a decision as to which one is more suitable for you. Then covering insurance, insurance is varies from people to people. It based on your personal needs, and it covers you for your required risks. For a family, it's better to have term protection, life protection if you have dependents or borrowings, so that your close ones are covered. And health insurance usually one is for emergency and other is for usual planned healthcare expenses. It does help to have a good health insurance cover to cover all your expenses throughout your life, because these can be the healthcare inflation is on the higher side in India. Plus, these can put a dent on your savings if you're not well covered or well insured. Then talking about investing, inflation is inevitable. All of us are facing inflation. Last year's average has been around 7% inflation. So effectively, you are losing 7% every year to inflation. Now, how you can save or protect yourself against it is it's better to have a goal-based approach with a budget and a timeline that you know what kind of expenses you are planning for that are plannable. You can plan in advance, and also the investment should be based on your risk profile, which is customized to you and your personal needs. What is good for me may not be good for, say, Vikas or for someone else. It is very personalized for you. Coming to taxation, tax planning is something all of us should be doing. If not, tax is another thing which is inevitable if you're earning an income and come in the taxable slab. And these days there is an option to choose old regime versus new regime. There are various exemptions and deductions present in the old regime which you can use should you opt for it. And you can optimize your tax saving basically so that the tax outgo is reduced to the extent possible legally. And if we talk about what is missing here, Benjamin Franklin had said that if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. So the key element which is missing here, probably because all of us are earning, saving, spending, and investing, but planning is something which can tie all these three together. And let's see how that can be done. Now, if we talk about saving and spending, right? If I ask you where do most of us keep our money, a lot of you will be answering both savings and FDs. While there is nothing wrong with those instruments inherently, but the allocation to those instruments really needs to be thought through, and whether or not you are keeping more than required there. Plus, if I talk to you about how do you usually spend, a lot of people will again be spending either from your current savings or using something like a debt, which could be in the form of credit card or it could be in the form of a personal loan and stuff. But the cost of debt compounds over time, just like the returns on investments compound over time. So it's very much advised to avoid the debt trap to the extent possible. At least not go for it for a consumption which is more of a want rather than a need. Because sometimes debt can also have a positive effect. For example, if you want to buy a house, which is an appreciating asset, and also you take it for your own consumption, you can consider debt. Or if it's for education, say an education loan for higher education, which will increase your ability to earn in the future. That is a debt which is probably is required to help you in the future. But debt taken for, say, consumption, say funding a international trip which is way beyond a budget, or other similar purchases, or impulsive purchases frequently could dent your financial health. Now, these I will put it as inefficient ways to spend. Now, if I talk about what is an effective way to spend, so the idea is that you need to find the right balance. It's better to bucket your goals into short, medium, and long-term goals. So, through as life stages progress, all of us will have different and changing goals. So, a young person close to the age of 30 may have different short-term goals as compared to someone the age of, say, 50 and about to retire in some time. But nonetheless, all of us will have various goals in various buckets. And many times we kind of push the long-term goals, saying that we'll look at it later. Retirement planning is not the first thing that comes to mind when you earn your first salary, or in the first few years of earning a salary. And many times it gets delayed till the growth rate, achievable, or the risk exposure drops. So it's better to plan it well in advance, and by bucketing, by creating these buckets, you'll have a better picture of which goals can be achieved in what duration and with what probability. So that will really help you plan, and maybe increase or decrease your saving rate as required, while having the peace of mind that your goals are achievable. Again, these can be differentiated by necessity and discretionary. Many times necessity is something you cannot avoid, but discretionary is something you have some discretion on. So maybe you will have to make a choice between a few things based on what you prefer more. Would you prefer spending it right away, or would you prefer saving for, say, you want to buy a car? Would you want to buy a 10 lakh rupee car today, or save for a few years and maybe buy a 15, 20 lakh rupee car 2, 3 years, 4 years down the line? So that's a personal choice which you'll have to make, and also it depends on individual circumstances. So what we are advising is that think of so till now we have been thinking of savings as a byproduct of what is left after we have done our expenses from the income. But it's better that with planning, that you out of your income you have your goals aligned, the goals which we talked about in the previous slide, and the amount that you need to save for each of these goals you're saving, and finally whatever is left you're trying to manage your expenses within that. Obviously it cannot be the case that you'll be able to save say 90% of your income in the initial stages or career period, and manage your expenses with 10%, but you need to find the right balance in this. But it's better to approach it from savings first lens, so that you have peace of mind that you're not enjoying or spending today at the cost of your own your financial future, or your own future basically. So the question comes, where do I save or invest? Now, in the last 3 odd years, equities have been extremely popular. Since COVID, since our post-COVID, equities have more than doubled. Then this is the Nifty 50 chart on your screen. And while a lot of us might have made investments in equities in the past few years, and they would have also performed reasonably well, much better than other asset classes, but you need consistent management of the money. There cannot be a I'll put it in this way, that no one asset class can continuously outperform other asset classes over say year-on-year period. On a long-term basis, some assets are better than others, but year-on-year there is no asset which comes out on top. There are various asset classes, right? If we talk about equities, one asset class is direct ownership of a company. Debt is there. Your fixed deposits come under debt. There are debt mutual funds, government bonds, PPF, etc. Then there are obviously other asset classes such as commodities, gold, silver, and alternate asset classes also, such as real estate. Crypto has been popular in the last decade. But none of these, I'll say, has consistently outperformed. So what is really needed is the planning part, or the advisory part for the investment. So what you can see in front of you is the previous 11 years asset allocation quilt, where you can see, if you look at the top row, none of the asset classes has consistently been there. While you will probably be observing that gold has been on the top 4 years out of the 11, and gold was the top performer for 2022 calendar year. But if you look on the bottom row also, gold has been the underperformer or worst performer for 5 out of the 11 years. So but on an average, if you look at the black shaded area, you can see that the equities part, all the three, large cap, small cap, and mid cap, on an average have stayed slightly on the upper side of the table as compared to other asset classes. So, like I said, year on year, you may see some volatility in various asset classes, and performance may vary over the period. But if you remain invested for a long duration of time, equity is something which is likely to outperform other asset classes, uh, likely to perform the other asset classes over time. Now, how do you get an exposure to the correct investment for you? Now, mutual fund is one very good way. When we think about mutual fund, maybe the first thing that comes into our mind is, other than the recent campaign that has been going on, which is saying mutual fund sahi hai, but we also think about in terms of risk, that okay, fine, I'll probably allocate some percentage or risky percentage of my capital towards mutual funds. But that doesn't actually give you the full picture. The mutual fund is not an asset class, or when you think about mutual fund, probably equity is what comes to our mind, or Nifty or stock market is what comes to our mind in the first instance. But actually, mutual fund is an instrument to invest into various asset classes. There are four primary categories of mutual fund, which is like debt, equity, alternatives, and hybrid. And even debt exposure, which is a stable asset class with much less volatility as compared to equity, is available from mutual funds as well. So it's not just equity. And also, like it's written on the slide, mutual funds sahi hai, but with the right advisor. So you have to pick and choose the funds which are good for you. Usually what people do is probably go after the advice of someone next door, your neighbor, your friend, your relative probably is buying something, and we tend to go after it. Or if we are doing some basic research, we'll probably go after funds, and data suggests that people usually go after funds which have performed best in the recent period, in the last 2 to 3 year period. But this may not, like we saw even from the asset allocation quilt, it may not always be the case that these continue to outperform. There are various other factors that you should also look at. So a right advisor can help you with it, even if it's a friend or family. But what is important is the knowledge or the understanding of the product before investing, and the suitability of the product, whether or not it is suitable for your goals, which we talked about a little bit earlier. Now, within mutual funds, we talked about selection. Now, index funds are a good option for someone who is, facing this issue that I'm not able to find a good advisor. Neither am I able to select or have the time to select the funds myself. So, index funds can help you get a basic exposure, but you can obviously optimize it further. So, it will be better to go with an advisor. But rather than not taking an action at all, it's better that you can at least start your journey. And SIPs are also a very good way to average your returns. Like we saw, last 3 years have been very good for the equity market. But if you look at some period before that, say 2005 to 7 was a swell period for equities, but 7, 8, there was a global financial crisis and there was a crash in the market. And even Nifty after 2010 to 2014 actually did not move much. It was flattish. So these market phases are part of the market, but SIPs can help you average your returns by remaining invested throughout the cycle and keep investing more. Keep investing every month. Now, coming to the selection of the right fund, there are 1,500 plus direct mutual funds out in the market. Now, how to select which one or which of these can be suitable for you? So, fund performance and market evaluations are something which, so we are sharing how we take or how we select funds on our platform. Multiple is a SEBI registered investment advisor, and how we select funds is, one is obviously based on performance, but we don't just look at the last few years of performance. It is a longer duration performance, say consistent performance over 10-year, 5-year periods, and rolling returns. And along with that, the volatility that was there or the risk that was taken to deliver the kind of performance. So along with these factors, the suitability for each individual needs to be seen. It will depend on your risk profile, your personal profile, the duration of your goal, and the goal purpose. So one fund may be better for your funding your 2-year goal versus other fund may be better for funding your 20-year goal, say retirement goal or something of that sort. And the philosophy that we operate with is the safety, liquidity, and returns philosophy, which means that the safety of the funds comes first. There should not be a loss of capital in a long duration period. There could be short-term volatility, which could lead to paper losses, but they should not translate into actual losses over long period of time. Then comes liquidity, that money should be available as and when you need. So this is a great feature of mutual funds over many other asset classes, because you don't have to pay a penalty usually, at least not a high penalty as compared to say fixed deposits, or even real estate is something you cannot liquidate at the time that you need. So liquidity is one feature which you get in mutual funds. And returns. So returns is something that we believe follows. If you take care of safety and liquidity and have done these checks which we talked about, the returns is something which is inevitable. Equity has been a high performing asset class as compared to a relatively high performing asset class. And the returns are a byproduct if you take care of the other two factors, so that if you don't lose capital and stay invested in the market for a reasonable period of time, you will make decent amount of money. And these, so finally we come to 3 to 5 funds which are curated for your goals. This is how we do the selection. Now, if I talk about various aspects of personal finance again, is quickly just sharing how Multiple can help with it. So Multiple is a goal-based investment application. Here, for example, if you're targeting your income pillar, you can create an upskilling goal for a course. We have brand partnerships where they offer products at a exclusive discount for multiple customers. And what you can do is save for your upskilling goals. Say you want to go for a digital marketing course, for example, which costs say 1 lakh. You can save for it. Maybe you want to go for it next year. You save for it for 6-8 months, 1 year, whatever, and then utilize that fund. Similarly, insurance needs, all of you will be having some insurance requirements, say life or health. You need to pay the premium for it, right? So how do you pay the premium? Every premium is inevitable and has to be paid on time. So you can every year you can start creating a goal for your accumulating funds for insurance premium, so that say if you have to pay 30,000 as premium every year, you can save 22,500 every month and get some returns on it plus any discount if it's available, and take the pay the premium. Similarly, savings, you can have there's an emergency fund goal. Other expenses, we have a lot of brand partners, 50 plus brand partners we have for various categories, say travel, gadget, jewelry. These are some of the common high selling categories. And then investments is there, a long-term investment, wealth creation. Taxation, you have ELSS. ELSS helps you save tax under the 80C in under the old regime, and is one of the better instruments within the ELSS category, which can help you save the tax. Just a quick word about Multiple. Multiple is a SEBI-registered investment advisory. We do personalized advisory for each of our customers, and the recommendations are based on research, like we have shared. We have 40 plus years of experience, and we are a SEBI-registered investment advisor. It's a zero commission platform. Only direct funds are given. There are no regular funds given, and as per law, basically we are working for the customer and not for as an agent of the mutual fund, which helps us give you recommendations which are suitable for your goal. Quickly showing the QR code on the screen. You can download the Multiple app from here. There's a short 300 rupees digital gold on your first transaction. And there is also weekly jackpot worth 5,000, which keeps happening every week. So you can have a look at it. And there's an exclusive invite code shared for you guys. Make sure to use it for the digital gold.
There are 2 types of services that we have. One is on the app. So the app also is personalized in the sense that it is based on your risk profile. So I did mention earlier in the chat box also, but I'll just repeat. So when we are giving a recommendation or an allocation for you, it is based on your risk profile, the time horizon of your goal, the goal that you choose, then the current market valuation and the amount of your goal. So based on all of these factors, and also when you onboard, apart from the risk profiling questionnaire, we also seek certain details which are required by SEBI. So we are SEBI registered investment advisor, and SEBI requires us to collect certain details about your profile. And in addition to the risk profile questionnaire, we use these details to determine your final risk profiles. So we have categorized in 4 different profiles: aggressive, growth, moderate, and conservative. So based on all of these inputs, the questionnaire as well as the other inputs that you provide, we determine your risk profile. And then when you choose a goal, say multiple has an option to create any goal, whether a short-term goal, medium-term, long-term, recurring. So for example, long-term wealth creation goal you can create, tax saver goals you can create. For the medium term, you can create goals like saving for your home down payment, buying a luxury car, or a foreign travel. Short-term goals could be immediate travel, gadget purchases, school fees, so essentials also, right? Like school fees, insurance payments. You can create goals for any financial outgo that you anticipate in any time horizon. And based on that time horizon, then again, the allocation could change. So for example, today, when market valuations are elevated, we are recommending only safer debt funds, wherein you might earn a return, in the range of 7.5%. But because the stock markets are richly valued, that is probably a better thing to do even for an aggressive profile. So there were times earlier when the markets were not so richly valued, and that time we even gave balance advantage funds some exposure to equity through balance advantage funds, and there people made a return of say even 12 to 14% as well. So on top of this market return, which is much better than the savings bank account return, because typically people do have goals. It's not that people don't have goals, but most of the time for these short-term goals, people don't invest. They just save in a bank account where they could earn an interest of 3, 4, 5% depending on their bank, or maybe at the most in FDRD, again maybe a percentage or two more there than the savings bank account interest. Instead of that, here you could get anywhere between 7 to 14, 15% depending on market conditions and the allocation given to you. Of course, keeping safety, liquidity, and return in that order. So safety and liquidity definitely come before the returns. On top of that, we have tied up with various brand partners. So you can tag a brand. For example, you want to travel to a particular destination. If the destination is listed, you can choose that. If it is not listed, you want a particular partner in which you are interested, say Make My Trip or Ease My Trip, you can tag them and get a additional offer which is over and above their native offers. So for example, a travel goal, say next year you want to go for a summer vacation. You can start planning for it now on Multiple. Based on the factors which I mentioned earlier, we will recommend the suitable mutual funds for you. And of course, these are all direct mutual funds. So there is no commission element here. So the return is better for you because the AMC is not paying anything to us. And on top of that, Make My Trip gives an additional 12%, which is over and above their native offers. So if they have some native code which is there at the time of your booking, you can use that as well. So effectively, you end up getting a 15 to 20% better outcome versus keeping the money in a savings bank account. So the personalization element here is that based on your risk profile and the details shared by you, the goal horizon shared by you, we are giving the recommendations. And again, it is not a DIY platform, so we are recommending based on all of these factors. So it's the team of experts which is doing quantitative and qualitative analysis for the fund selection, and then giving the suitable funds based on the asset allocation which is suitable for you, determined as per the algorithm based on the factors mentioned earlier. The other personalized service that we have is a HNI and NRI service. So that is an offline service. That is a highly customized, highly personalized service that we offer, and wherein the minimum ticket size is 25 lakhs. And there we do comprehensive financial planning, as well as we build customized stock portfolios generally, because most of the times the requirements are longer term. In case there are short-term term requirements, we often also suggest some debt mutual funds as well for the short-term requirements. So there you have, here also support is available on the app front, and on the HNI and NRI side, you have direct access to the investment team. So that's a slight difference, but otherwise The support team is available here, and here also, if required, on the app also, if you are creating some goal, and if certain help is required from an investment expertise point of view, our investment team members, do get in touch and help to resolve that as well.
So
Right.
I just wanted to understand for a child's education, if I want to plan ahead, say for 10, looking at next 10 years, what
Right.
kind of fund selection would you suggest if I'm looking to say garner a corpus of around 50 lakhs in span of 10 years?
Right. So see, when the goal is long term, typically, equities is a most suitable asset class. Of course, when the goal gets nearer, you have to move into a safer instrument. So, like, say for the next 7 to 8 years, it might be good to remain invested in equities for that corpus building. And then when you are closer to the goal, the last 2 or 3 years, depending on the market conditions and valuation at that point of time, it would be better to move to a debt instrument at that point of time for that particular time horizon. Now, the factors which are at play here is, at the end of, say, seventh year, what if the market conditions are not very suitable, or like markets are in a correction mode? Do you still exit and move into debt? No. And that is where the understanding of market valuation becomes critical. That, whether markets are richly valued, undervalued, is that the right time to exit and move to the safer instrument, or should it be done a few months later or before, depending on market conditions again? So say, like, at the end of the 6.5 years, markets become very richly valued, then you don't need to wait for the seventh year, right? You can just move into debt. Or if the corpus which you are looking for, because of a good run in equities for the next 5-6 years, you have already kind of reached closer to that corpus to an extent that keeping the money in a safer instrument for the next 3-4 years also will help you meet the goal amount, then again you move to safety. So there is not a standard formula which can be given. It will depend on the dynamics of the market conditions, how they play out over the next few years, that how you can change. But yes, at this point of time, an equity fund might be suitable to start with. And if you are planning to save, say, on a monthly basis, not on a lump sum basis, you can keep investing into an equity fund. Again, which fund to invest in, as I mentioned earlier, it will depend on your risk profile, also the time horizon of the goal, current market valuations, as we look at it from our proprietary perspective. So when you download the app and when you start saving on the app with these inputs that you provide, you will be able to look at the allocation. Even before you confirm the execution, you can look at the allocation, and then you can, if you are satisfied based on the whole process, then you can click confirm and the execution will happen. And the mutual fund, again, the money doesn't come to us at multiple. The money goes directly from your account to the mutual fund's account. So in that ways, it's complete control over your funds is with you. And based on the inputs that you provide, we will suggest the right allocation for this particular goal. And later on, we also monitor and rebalance. So what I was telling you in terms of, at the end of 6th year or 7th year or 8th year, whatever is required, team multiple will be monitoring that. And when your goal is closer to completion, then we would suggest what is the right time to switch and what is the right debt instrument to switch in, or whether you should switch into some balanced advantage fund, some hybrid instrument, which is a mix of debt and equities. So this is again something we will do for you.
So we had a question from a client who wants to know about some tips on tax savings.
If you look on the screen, the slide shows you whether to choose new regime or old regime. So the column on the right shows you the amount of deduction that you need that offsets the benefit between old and new regime. So what it means here, for example, is if you have a 3 lakh rupees income, basically minimum deduction that you need is 50,000 to go for old regime versus new regime to have the final tax liability as same. Now, if you look at something like 12 lakh income, in the new tax regime, your liability will be 82,500. And in the old tax regime, if you have deductions of 3,50,000, which is say your HRA, your ATC deduction, and any other deductions that you are eligible for, NPS, etc., If all of them total amount to 3,50,000, then you or more than that, then you should go for old regime. If it's less than that, you should go for the new regime. And similarly, you can look for different parameters, different amounts. So beyond 15 lakh, if you go for anything above 4,25,000 deduction is there, then you should go for new regime. If not, then you should prefer the old regime, anywhere above 20 lakh. And also another thing, 80C is something that all of us are very used to and may probably will be saving every year. Most of us by default end up choosing something like a EPF or a PPF, and many times maybe take a tax saver FD. But here is a graph which shows you what the value of 1 lakh that you invest today will be after 15 years. Reason I've taken 15 years as a time horizon is a lot of these products have lock-in for a really long time. Like for example, NPS, you can withdraw only at the time of retirement. ULIPs and tax FDs have minimum 5-year lock-in. That compared to ELSS, which is equity linked savings scheme, which is tax saver mutual fund, which has only 3-year lock-in and also provides the higher return in equity, like we had seen in the previous presentation also. So it could, while NPS is a decent option, also coming close to that equity exposure, but as you age and as you get closer to your retirement, the allocation to equity will drop. Plus, NPS has a lock-in, right, where you don't have a liquidity till you reach the age of retirement, whereas ELSS will give you liquidity right after 3 years. And also these calculations are post-tax. So while NPS is tax-free or ULIP is tax-free, which acts as a initial hook for us to go for it, ELSS may be taxable, but after 15 years post-tax also, it ends up to be a better investment. This is just to sensitize you guys on the options available under 80C. And if we are, by default choosing one for the convenience or for lack of better information, it's better to consider something like an ELSS, which can give you a higher return as well as the lowest lock-in. And all of this is post-tax return.
So there is clearly a double benefit here, as Nikhil explained, a much lower lock-in and a much better return. I mean, it's a no-brainer because the horizon typically is long. 3 years is anyways a statutory lock-in. You can't do anything. I mean, even if the market goes down, you can't panic and sell it. So it's a great option for tax saving, which one should seriously consider if they're opting for the old regime.
Right.
What do you think of small case? Is it a good vehicle to use for investing in equity markets? So first of all, I think I need to give a small disclaimer here that small case founders are angel investors in multiple. But yeah, my answer would not be influenced by that. The answer here is, see, small case is again a medium. The way mutual fund, is a way to get exposure to markets, right? Mutual fund by itself is not an instrument. Now, is it a better medium than mutual funds? Again, will depend on the small case chosen or the small case manager or advisor who you are choosing. What is their philosophy? What is their approach? How do they invest in markets? There are, I think, baskets which you can choose, but typically from an approach point of view, what I think is investing is very specific to each individual. It is a very individual specific activity. See, personal finance is personal because it is related to you, right? There cannot be a one size fits all approach. Now, when we are, I mean, especially on the HNI side or NRIs, when we create, customized portfolios, each portfolio is unique depending on the, risk profile of the client, depending on the time horizon of the client, depending on the specific investment constraints or objectives that they might have. Because there might be people so we do have certain clients who are themselves, experts in certain areas of the market. So like there's one person who is an expert in small and mid cap stocks. So he has asked us to create a portfolio only of large cap stocks, right? That's a very specific requirement. We have another client who is a trader, but he wants a long-term portfolio. But again, he has a specific requirement that it has to only be in large cap so that he can get margin for his trading. So each individual's requirement is very different. And that is where I think, a one size fits all approach doesn't really work, in the sense it may work, it may give you certain returns, but it may not be the best for you from a both risk and return point of view. So returns is just one part of the equation, right? What is also important is to understand the risk. And when it comes to risk, it is not just about your appetite for risk, but also your capacity for risk. Do you really have the capacity to absorb, volatility, especially if it brings a monetary hit to you? And also from a, volatility to digest mentally also sometimes might be difficult for certain people. So they might have the monetary capacity, they might have the financial capacity, their balance sheet might be strong enough to weather any downfall in markets, but they may not have the mental strength. We have also seen clients like that. A client had a 20 crore portfolio, but with the slightest movement in the market, he would get panicky, and his net worth was 100 crores. So really made no difference if markets went down and it was a notional loss, right? Because until you book, it is notional. And equity markets by nature are volatile. They will recover at some point of time. Sure. Thanks a lot, Maisha,
Thank
for organizing this.